Developed as an advanced derivative of the Su-27 flanker. Powered by twin N035 engines, capable of extreme maneuverability at both high and low speeds. In service with the Russian aerospace forces, it was more than an upgrade. It was a transformation, redefining what a Soviet-designed airframe could become in the modern era. The Su-30SM remains one of the most versatile and formidable fighters in its class. A platform designed not for stealth, but for sustained control of contested airspace. Built from legacy, driven by power, defined by control. The Su-30SM. But then they improved it.
Hey, hello. Well, that only took 4 months. Thank you, Gaijin, for releasing so many new Su-30s. But anyway, let's get into it. So, the Sukhoi Su-30 is a twin-engine, 2-seat, super maneuverable, multi-role fighter developed in the Soviet Union in the 1980s. It is derived from the Su-27 family and officially redesignated the Su-30 in 1996. Over decades, the Su-30 evolved into numerous variants for export and domestic use. The Su-30SM is Russia's serial modernized variant, introduced in 2012, but that's where Gaijin just had to add so many different models that I had to redo the whole script. And the king of them all, the Su-30SM2. But first, it's my belief that knowing the history about an aircraft is just as important as knowing its specifications. So let's start with that. Okay, so in the late 1970s and early 1980s, the Soviet Union needed a direct counter to American air dominance fighters like the F-15 Eagle. The answer was the Sukhoi Su-27, a large, powerful air superiority fighter designed for long-range intercepts and extreme maneuverability. But the Su-27 had limitations. It was a single-seat aircraft that was built primarily for air superiority, and while it had incredible range by fighter standards, the Soviets needed something more. A long-range endurance interceptor capable of coordinating other aircraft across massive distances, especially over Siberia and the Arctic, where ground radar coverage was sparse, as the Su-27 often required ground vectoring to get to its target. The 2-seat trainer version of the Su-27, known as the Sukhoi Su-27UB, first flew in 1985. Originally intended for training, engineers quickly realized something important. With 2 crew members, the aircraft could divide workload, one pilot flying, one managing radar, weapons, and navigation. This dramatically increased its potential for long-range missions. Therefore, in the late 1980s, Sukhoi began developing the Su-27PU. It's a very Russian word, but it essentially means airborne command post. This was not a trainer. It was envisioned as a long-range interceptor and a battle management aircraft, a command node capable of directing other fighters. The first prototype flew in 1989. Unlike the baseline Su-27, the PU variant incorporated in-flight refueling capability, improved communication systems, extended mission endurance, and advanced navigation systems. But as you may have guessed by now, in 1991 the Soviet Union collapsed, and funding dried up, but the aircraft survived in a new role. In 1996, the Russian Ministry of Defense officially redesignated the Su-27PU as the Su-30. But why did they change the name? Well, after the Cold War, Russia no longer needed large numbers of specialized long-range interceptor command aircraft, as by this point the role had basically been filled by AWACS and early warning aircraft such as the A-50. What Russia did need was a multi-role fighter that could be exported, a platform that could perform air superiority, and also the engineers found that this aircraft was especially good at strike missions with the second crew, and giving it a new name made it feel like a new aircraft, which was very marketable to foreign customers. So instead of keeping the aircraft as a niche interceptor controller, Sukhoi repositioned it as a multi-role derivative of the Su-27 family, in a similar vein to the F-15E. And frankly, after the Cold War, went on a renaming spree, some notable examples being the T-90 and the Su-34. Anyway, after the Soviet collapse, Russia desperately needed export contracts to keep its aviation industry alive, so it was decided that production would be split between two companies. KN-AAPO focused exclusively on export Su-30 variants. And I'm sorry for this in advance, but Irkut, which would become the primary developer of advanced multi-role Su-30 variants. The real turning point came when India ordered a heavily customized version, the Su-30 MKI. This wasn't just an export model, it redefined what a Russian export aircraft could be, as before, most Russian aircraft were simple copies or even downgrades of their normal models. First introduced in 2002, the MKI introduced canards for improved high-angle maneuverability, thrust vectoring AL-31FP engines, a multinational avionics suite, the N011M BARS passive electronic scan array radar. This transformed the Su-30 from a two-seater Su-27 into a true fourth-gen multi-role fighter. Following the MKI came the Sukhoi Su-30 MKA for Algeria, Su-30 MKM for Malaysia, you can kind of see the pattern here, but also the Su-30 MK2 for China, Vietnam, and others. Each variant tailored specifically for their customers' requirements. By the mid-2000s, the Su-30 had become Russia's most successful fighter export platform, with hundreds being built. For years, however, Russia exported advanced Su-30s, but did not operate them domestically. That changed in 2012 with the introduction of the Su-30SM, that SM standing for Serial Modernized. The Su-30SM was essentially a Russian standardization of the MKI, the main difference pretty much being Russian avionics replacing foreign components. It became a backbone fighter for the Russian aerospace forces and Russian naval aviation, but by the late 2000s a problem emerged. Russia was fielding the more advanced Su-35S, which had more powerful engines, a more advanced radar, and most of its avionics was far newer. Operating two similar but different flanker variants increased logistics capacity and cost, as well as the many other aircraft Russia fielded. So Russia made the decision, rather than replacing the Su-30SM fleet entirely, Russia chose to upgrade it. The goal, standardized the Su-30SM with Su-35 systems. The result was the Su-30SM2. Announced around 2019, the SM2 was designed to integrate the AL-41 F1S engines from the Su-35, replace the BARS radar with the N035 Irbis-E, ASA radar, upgrade avionics and electronic warfare systems, expand capability with the newest long-range missiles. In other words, the Su-30SM2 represent the final evolution of a design lineage that began with a Cold War interceptor concept in the 1980s. The Su-30SM2 retains the Su-30SM's two-seat canard-equipped flanker airframe, but replaces key systems with Su-35 technology. Its engines are upgraded to the Saturn AL-41 F1Fs, a version of the Su-35's AL-41Fs. This advanced turbofan provides roughly 15 to 16 metric tons of thrust and enables sustained supersonic flight without afterburner. In practice, the AL-41 F1s delivers significantly higher thrust and better fuel economy than older AL-31 FPs on the SM. The Irkutsk plant reports that with the AL-41F, the Su-30 gains improved acceleration, climb rate, and long range, thanks to supersonic cruise. However, not every SM2 it appears has these engines, as most were only upgraded with avionics or radar. Later SM2s did receive these newer engines, especially the naval variants. Russia does plan to refit all of its SM2 jets with the newer engines. The radar is also new. The SM2 carries the NIIP N035 Irbis-E pacer radar from the Su-35. This long-range search radar can reportedly detect fighter targets at on the order of several hundred kilometers, track dozens of aircraft, and engage multiple targets simultaneously. By contrast, the original SM's N011M bars radar has a shorter range and is far less modern. One of the really big upgrades with this radar is being fitted on a gimbal, allowing the radar to track targets while the plane is flying away. Other avionics and systems were modernized. The SM2 features an upgraded cockpit with larger color multifunctional displays and new data links, plus an advanced electro-optical targeting or IRST system. Its electronic warfare suite has been refreshed. Kimberly digital jammers and radar warning gear can protect the jet from missiles. The infrared optical sensors or the helmet-mounted sight help target adversaries without active radar. In short, the SM2 matches the Su-35's avionics package while keeping its two-seater format. The airframe and aerodynamics are unchanged from the SM. The SM2 is a heavy fighter with a typical maximum takeoff weight of around 34.5 tons and can carry about 8 tons of internal fuel. With the new engine, it can supercruise, unlike the original SM, and it's still being able to reach top speeds of around Mach 2 at altitude. The surface ceiling is on the order of 17 to 18 kilometers. The thrust vectoring nozzles and canards give it very high maneuverability with around 9 Gs in practice. In summary, the Su-30SM2 is essentially an Su-30SM airframe with the brains and brawn of an Su-35. It retains the same silhouette and performance envelope, but has much stronger engines, a far-seeing radar, and most of its avionics and electronics are far more modern. The Su-30SM2 retains the flanker's classic 12 hardpoints and roughly 8,000 kilograms of external payload, but what separates it from the earlier Su-30SM isn't the weight, it's the integration of Su-35 level weapons. Like every flanker, the SM2 carries the 30mm Gush 30-1 with 150 rounds. It fires around 1500 to 1800 rounds per minute. It can be extremely effective if you can get your shots on target. The Su-30SM2 can carry the full spectrum of Russian air-to-air missiles, but most importantly, it can now employ the same weapons as the Su-35S. The short-range R-73A, a high-angle IR-guided missile with off-bore sight capability and thrust vectoring, with a stated range of roughly 30 kilometers. However, in reality, it's probably more like 4. And with capability of carrying the newer R-73M and R-74, perfect for high angle of attack knife fights, something the thrust vectoring SM2 excels at. For medium-range missiles, the old reliable R-27 variants with the R-27R and ER with semi-active seekers, and the IR version, the R-27ET. For active radar seeking, the R-77 is compatible, but you're unlikely to see it, especially on an SM2. The more likely candidate is the R-77-1, which gives improved range and resistance to countermeasures over early R-77s. And it's extremely likely that the SM2 can carry R-77Ms, which are a complete redesign with a higher probability of kill as it has a new dual-stage motor. Here's the real upgrade. The SM2 can employ the R-37M with an estimated range of 300 kilometers. This missile was previously reserved for aircraft like the MiG-31, later integrated into the Su-35. The original Su-30SM did not have this capability to use the R-37M. With the N035, the SM2 can now detect and engage high-value targets at extreme distance. This transforms the aircraft into a long-range air denial platform, not just a multi-role fighter. For strike and anti-tank duties, the KH-29 and KH-38 are heavily featured on the SM2, with the capability of also carrying the KH-59M and the MK2 for long-range strike. The KH-59 MK2 is especially important, reduced radar cross-section, standoff range, and precision guidance. For anti-ship and anti-radiation duties, the KH-31 P and A variants can reach Mach 3, have anti-ship and anti-radiation versions, and 100-250 kilometers of range depending on variant. For precision-guided bombs, the SM2 carries the CAB 500, CAB 1500, and the CAB 250. The CAB 250 is notable as it's lighter, more modern, and better suited for precision tactical strikes without overkill. A lot of these munitions have also been retrofitted to carry glide kits, increasing their range drastically. It can also carry the old reliable Fab series of unguided bombs, RBK cluster munitions, and rocket pods. In total, the Su-30SM2's weapon suite makes it a flexible missile truck with up to 40 missiles and a healthy selection of strategic and tactical strike munitions. The Su-30SM2 is now becoming the standard flanker for Russia. Under a 2020 State Defense Order, about 21 new build SM2 fighters were contracted. These have been delivered to the Russian Navy Air Arms, naval aviation units on the Baltic and Black Sea, and to the aerospace forces. By 2026, allied customers like Belarus are also receiving SM2s. For instance, Belarus has taken delivery of 8 Su-30SM2 jets to match its earlier Su-30SMs, with another 4 to fill the squadron of 12 jets. Crucially, Russia intends to upgrade its entire Su-30SM fleet to the SM2 standard. Industry reports indicate that roughly 110 older Su-30SM airframes will be retrofitted with the new radar, engines, and cockpits by the mid-2020s. The Irkutsk plant has begun these conversions, along with new builds. Looking ahead, the SM2 will remain a key part of Russia's air combat forces. It fills the niche of a long-endurance, heavy strike fighter, even as newer jets like the Su-35S and Su-57 enter service. Its combination of heavy payload, long range, and enhanced sensors will ensure it can hold airspace over extended battle spaces. Further upgrades, such as an electronically scanned array radar or new stealth missiles, may appear over time as technology evolves, but for now, the SM2 is essentially the Su-30 maximally modernized, and will be the backbone of the Russian aerospace forces for years to come.